recording. We're going to go ahead and get started, and maybe others will join us. Everybody doesn't seem to be quite here yet, but just need to remind you again that these sessions are for Dr. Revis and for Dr. Stedman. If for some reason you belong to Dr. Crawford or to Dr. Hamilton, you will need to sign off and then join in to their sessions. We'd love to have you, but I think that they're going to be looking for you. Okay, there's still. While we're waiting, we'll give it about one more minute. Katie, can I put you on the spot? Katie, can you hear me? She's not going to let me.
I think that's a no from her.
Okay, Katie, yes, Katie. I want to brag on Katie. This is a shout out. I found out Katie is in competition for Teacher of the Year for her district. And I think you said it was down to 5 and you're one of the 5 finalists.
Yes, sir.
Congratulations, Katie.
Thank you.
Very, very proud of that.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stop. I'm going to share the screen so I can go ahead and we can pull up. Got a lot to do this evening. Welcome to week 2. Again, you'll hear Dr. Revis and me say it each week. Week 2, can you believe you got a whole week behind you already? 1 week out of 16 weeks is over with. Guys, it will go by very, 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 very quickly. That's why, you know, you'll hear us say we got to hit the road running and we got to do this and we got to do that, because that's the truth. But welcome and thank you for being back. That makes me happy, Dr. Revis, that I see so many back. They listen to us and they're going to hang in there, and we're going to make believers out of them and let them know that in about another week and a half after they get this, I'd say the 3rd week going into the 4th week, you're going to be pros at this. So we're laying a good foundation for you, and this foundation is going to help you be very successful in the program, everything that we've laid out for you. Dr. Revis, would you like to say anything at this time?
Yes, I'm so excited to be working with you guys. Many of you have emailed me this week and asked questions about getting your PLC started and asking some details. And, you know, that just really excites me. It tells me that you're being very forward thinking. And I know that many of you already have that first PLC behind you. So, and I did share with some of you who told me you were meeting either yesterday or today to go ahead and take a look at this PowerPoint that I'm going to share with you in just a few moments. So anyway, it's great to hear from you. As always, please, if you're in my class, reach out to me. I would much, much rather answer questions now if you're not sure on something than for you to start down the wrong path and then have to back up, because that just causes you a lot of extra time. So reach out and ask us questions as you're working through something. If you're not quite sure, you will get the hang of it and you won't have to ask as many questions as we progress. Right. But right now, ask questions.
Right. And Dr. Revis and I, we talk on a regular basis, and we have agreed that, you know, while you may belong to me on record and you may belong to Dr. Revis on record, we work together, so you may hear from either of or both of us, and that's okay. You know, so we don't want to confuse you, but usually we're thinking pretty much along the very same lines with things. So, you know, if you're in Dr. Revis's groups and you can't, for some reason you can't reach her, reach out to me, vice versa. So, you know, we don't want you having to wait. Very quickly, let's look at what this evening is going to look like, because we've got a lot to cover. I'm going to very quickly go over task 1 of the AAPSL in review. Then Dr. Revis is going to present a PowerPoint on the professional learning community. Following that, we're going to go ahead and go into, we have to introduce you to task 2 of the AAPSL. I'm going to share with you prompt 1, Dr. Revis is prompt 2, and then we'll provide feedback for each other on what we're saying. And then Dr. Revis is going to go into the peer review process, but Dr. Hamilton is going to take it to the next level on Thursday evening, but we felt like that we needed to go ahead and introduce you to that. And then I will have some follow-up comments, and then there'll be some time for question and answers. I'm going to come back to this because what you see highlighted at the bottom is just a reminder of, to keep you on pace when things are due and what is due. And this is not all of it. So I will come back to this. I'm going to minimize this, and then I'm going to pull up my document that I shared with you on last Thursday. At this point, I would hope that for most of you that you've had your site visit with your virtual site visit with your clinical coach 1. I've still got a couple of 3 that I'm still trying to work with. Dr. Revis, I think you're working on yours as well, but you should at least have had some communication with them. And if you haven't had it already, you should be, that should be scheduled. And if it hasn't been scheduled, you need to let Dr. Revis and me know, because we need to find out what the problem is or the problems are if that has not happened. So make sure you let us know. Just a quick look at task 1 of the AAPSL, reminding you that the AAPSL is the analysis and action plan for student learning. We shared with you that your first responsibility was your school profile. And remember, this is the story of your school. Then next, your PLC research, with a minimum of 3 sources, and one of them must be a reference from Richard Dufour, which that's been stressed over and over and over again. And even in our presentation from the library, that was talked about this evening. And again, in this, all you're doing is you're talking about, according to the research, what is a PLC? According to the research, what does a good PLC look like, or what should it look like? How is a good PLC conducted? What are the norms, etc.? And again, this is all according to what the research says. I'm going to show you a good completed student's piece of work this evening when we get to task 2, so that you can kind of see how this should look. And you've got an example of this, a sample in your Blackboard shell as well. Then you should already know, if you haven't, you should already know who your PLC members are. You should have had that discussion with your administrator. You should have contacted these people already. If you haven't, then you need to make this happen immediately. And when you decide who they are, you need to explain, why did you choose them? It could be that your principal said, this is going to be your team. And if it is, you tell us that. But with that, you've got to talk about, what are their strengths? And when we talk about the strengths, you could talk about, first of all, it could be part of it could be their years of experience in the field. It could be that they are nationally board certified. It could be that they have a master's or a doctorate degree in a specific curriculum area. There's lots of things that you could, what are the attributes for each of the members in your group? And what are their educational credentials? That's all you do for that part. Then you're going to meet with that team. What is the purpose of that meeting? Not to do research, not to disaggregate data. The only purpose is to introduce the PLC, what you're there for, to discuss the vision and the purpose, to establish the norms, and to make a decision about the parliamentary type things that you will have to take care of every time you meet. When are you going to meet? Is there going to be a regular weekly schedule, a certain time to the best of your ability? Or are you going to try to adhere to those kinds of things? Who's going to take minutes? Those are the kinds of things that you discuss in this meeting. You're going to have an agenda. You're going to present them with an agenda, and that agenda is going to become an artifact. After you've done all of that, and you put it in the template that is provided for you in Blackboard, you're going to have a reference section because you did some research up at the top. You're going to have at least a minimum of 3 references there. And again, remember that's APA 7th edition. And you're going to have an appendices, because in that appendices, remember, you were required to, even though you may have talked with your principal, we said that you had to have an artifact. So we said to email your principal, explaining to them briefly that you're in this program of study, that you're required to do a PLC, you're asking their permission to conduct a PLC, you're asking their permission to form your PLC committee, and then or anything else that you want to say to them. You will have a copy of that. That will become an artifact. In addition, you will have an affirmative response. We need to see something that says, where your principal has responded back and says, yes, I support the PLC, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes it's just a one sentence statement from them, but you make a copy of that email and you put it in your appendices as an artifact. And then just a reminder, did you follow the template with correct headings and subheadings and APA 7th edition? This is what is due this Sunday night by 9 o'clock. What I've just shared with you, this is what is due. And when you submit it to Dr. Revis and me and to your peers, because remember, this is for peer and instructor review. And we're going to reference that more as we talk about the peer review process in a few minutes. You need to submit the work to the best of your ability the first time as a finished product. It is a review, but it must be submitted the first time to the best of your ability as a finished product. Do not submit incomplete work. It will not be looked at. It will be sent back. You will get a 0 on it. You will have an opportunity to fix it, but you will not get full credit for that correction if you did not follow directions the first time. Do not submit incomplete work. It may not be perfect work, but to the best of your ability, it's perfect work. The purpose of the review is for your peers to look at it. They may see something and give you some suggestions that you hadn't even thought of. And then it gives Dr. Revis and me the opportunity to look at it from the professional point of view. And we're going to say that, we may say that, we like so-and-so, but our main focus is to make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to do. So if we see problems with APA, if we see problems with formatting, if we see that your in-text citations are not right, that the capitalization, we're going to tell you, and we're going to tell you to fix it. Now, guess what we're not going to do? Your peers may help you do this, but you're not going to find Dr. Revis and me going back and highlighting stuff and putting commas in there. And we're going to tell you there is something wrong with your in-text citations. There is something wrong with your capitalization. It's your responsibility to go back and to learn that according to APA 7th edition and to fix it. Now, does that mean that we won't ever give you an example of something? No. If there's a reason that we need to work with you one-on-one, we will show you samples of some things, if that continues to be a problem with you. But if we do it for you, then you are not learning like you need to learn. And so we're not even going to start that. So you will be responsible once we tell you that there's a problem, and we'll guide you in what the problems are. But it's your problem, it's your responsibility to fix it. Dr. Revis, anything at this point you'd like to say?
Yeah, I would just like to say that when I'm giving you feedback, for this task one, these are my look fors. I go right down this list and I look for each of these 7 things. And so I would encourage you when you're giving peer feedback to use this as your guide to go through and to give them feedback. So you can kind of take that as these are your look fors. Now, we do a review process, but when Dr. Stedman and I review your work, we do score it. The scores range anywhere from a 30, it's a 100-point scale from, a 50 to 100. And let's say the first time that you submit something, you maybe you didn't have a deep enough research in your PLC research section. I might write back to you and say, strengthen your PLC research section. And I may give you a 90 on it. But that gives you an opportunity to go back and revise and turn it back into me. Now, if you don't turn it back into me revised, then that 90 stands. It never gets changed. What you want to strive for is to get 100 in the review process. If I score you at 100, you're ready to turn it in for final evaluation. But we stay in that review process. If I review your work 2 or 3 times and it's not coming along, that's when I may need to say, I'm going to ask you to talk with Dr. Stedman, because obviously we're not communicating well. Typically, that doesn't happen.
Right.
We both work with our own students unless you get behind or unless you need some specific one-on-one work. But there's no reason that you should not score 100 on every assignment, on every task that you submit, because we're in the review process.
And if you
And
do,
once you get 100 there, then you're good to go and you get 100 on your final evaluation. Is that true, Dr. Stedman?
that is true. And if you do what we ask you to do, and you do it in a timely manner, you will be successful and you will be all right. However, it's so important that you follow the timelines that we've established for you. Getting behind 1 week can be detrimental to you even being able to keep up. So make sure you are pacing yourself well. Somebody asked a question, is there a link? We're not going to tell you how long something's going to be or how short something. We ask that you fully cover whatever the topic is or whatever the area is to the best of your ability. Go back and look at the examples, the samples given in Blackboard. That will guide you, and that'll kind of let you know work that has been approved in the past. There's not necessarily a certain length to anything. It's that you cover what you need to cover. As we said last week on Thursday, some people's writing styles are different, or all of your writing styles are. Some people, it requires a lot. Some people can say a lot, but with less words. So, that it's going to be left up to you, once you know that you've covered everything. Yes, you can submit a task more than once for review. However, the first time you submit it, it should be to the best of your ability. It should be a complete document, and to the best of your ability, it should be an accomplished document. It's to your ability. You need to say, I've done the best I know how to do with this. And you know what? Now, Dr. Revis and I, we know when it's not your best and when you haven't given us our best. I can tell you this, we do it every day. We can go into Blackboard and we know when it's documented when you go in Blackboard. We know when someone waits until Sunday to do an assignment that is due Sunday night. You cannot survive in this program and wait until the last minute to get your work done. You must pace yourself. Am I right or wrong, Dr. Revis?
You are correct. And I was talking to one of my clinical interns today, and she's already finished with her task 1, by all means, when you finish, go ahead and upload it.
You don't
for
have to wait
peer and
until
ins-
Sunday.
Right. Go ahead and upload it for peer and instructor review. That gets you ahead of the game and it gets us ahead of the game.
Right.
So, yeah, you can resubmit things for review, but guys, we can't stay in that review phase long. We don't have time. If you're having to revise something more than once, you need to put a little more time into it.
Okay.
I'll just be honest with you. But anyway, we're here for you and we want you to hand in your best work. If you get it done, go ahead and upload it and we'll start giving you feedback. This next week is going to be a tough week because not only do you have to start on task 2, but you've got to revise anything in task 1 that needs revision so that final document is ready by the following Sunday. We'll talk about that in a moment. I'm getting ahead of myself.
Okay, Dr. Revis, if you would, let's go ahead and talk to them a little bit more about the professional learning communities. Then
Okay.
we'll come back to we'll go into task 2.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen.
Okay, let me stop sharing then. Let me bring this down and okay, you go ahead now.
Okay. Can you see my slideshow, Dr. Stedman? Can you see the slideshow, guys?
Yes, we can.
Okay, all right. So I don't want to belabor this because Dr. Hamilton did a real good job on Thursday evening presenting professional learning communities. But let me just make a suggestion. You and I both know that many times in education, when we pull together a group of teachers, we call it a PLC. And it's really not, because a true PLC looks different. So when you are organizing your PLC, if you wish to use any of this PowerPoint, you may. You can use any of it or all of it. It does not bother me. Just give me credit for it. That's all I ask. And feel free to share that with your PLC. So we know in a true PLC, our focus is on a commitment to student learning with 3 big ideas: learning for all students, developing that culture of collaboration, and a focus on results. 3 big ideas. So with the 3 questions, and these are DeForest questions, what do we want students to learn? How will we know when they've learned it? And how will we respond if they start experiencing difficulty in their learning? So let me just say that collaboration does not come naturally. And I know that when we bring together new groups or new teams, it takes a little time to become comfortable with each other and build trust with each other. So if you're bringing together that new team, think about you've got to build trust with each other before that collaboration can really take place. And so here are some norms. We always think about norms that we're going to begin and end on time and all that jazz. Well, we also need to talk about how are we going to make decisions as a team? How will we come to a consensus? How will we agree to disagree? And how will we agree to communicate? When we leave this meeting, how will we communicate with each other and with other people? And then when will we meet again? And then what information do we keep confidential in our meeting? And what information is free to share? And those are the kinds of things that you need to go a level deeper in building your norms. This is a really good resource. In fact, I had one candidate tell me that she had found this on her own and that she had even taken it. And there's some activities in here about norm setting and icebreakers and those kinds of things. You don't have to use this, but it is a good guide because some of you may never have led a group of peers. Some of you've done that quite a bit. Some of you are already in leadership roles within your school and you feel very comfortable doing this. But this will help you, particularly if you've never had experience in this. And remember, we're very focused on results oriented. We're very results oriented. We need to focus on tangible results. And as you build your AAPSL in task 4, you have to have tangible results. You'll need to build short and long-term goals. And we want to be constantly examining the results of student learning. Now, I'm not going to go into this because this is the school improvement cycle that I went through on Thursday evening. So let's keep going. Teams are potentially dysfunctional. So be careful. And one way to avoid having a dysfunctional team is not establishing norms, not establishing goals, a lack of trust, a lack of communication, and a lack of bringing that student learning outcome data to the table. And so one thing that I like to say about professional learning communities is, yes, we are focused on student learning, but boy, howdy, the professional learning that is a natural outgrowth of becoming engaged around student learning is unbelievable. So it is professional learning for educators. And there are some other resources that Dr. Stone shared when he taught this course. And in addition to some of the resources you already have in Blackboard. Any questions? Again, this is in your week 2, and just feel free to use any or all of it when you're doing your first meeting with your PLC. Lisa, I see you have your hand up.
I have a question, and it's I guess it's a little long, but I'm going to try to consolidate. So how do we, or I guess I'm wondering if anybody else is having the same issue that I have in getting our peers to maybe see the value of the PLC. You know, I mean, I definitely have an interest in this, and I've talked to my administrator about it. I don't know if it's that there's a lot going on everywhere around us. You know, we've got the pandemic here. I live in Haywood County. We've got massive flooding going on. Everybody's really stressed about that. And plus people are trying to work on their PDPs right now. And so all my peers seem scattered. I don't mean that way. I just feel like everybody's really trying to focus on what's important to them. And this isn't as important to them maybe as some of the things that are really important right now. And so for instance, we were supposed to have a meeting today. We ended up letting out of school early for the potential flooding. And we tried to get together and nobody could really get together because we were working on PDPs and meeting here. So we didn't get to meet. So I'm feeling kind of stressed about how am I going to pull this together, because now that I've thrown out another meeting time, nobody can seem to make it. So that was my lengthy question.
Let me suggest something. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, let me suggest something. We're living in a virtual age now. Most people can function better in front of a computer. I would recommend, you know, even if it's after school hours, you know, it might be after 7 o'clock like we're meeting now, have a Zoom meeting, a virtual meeting, and you cover the very same thing. You lead in the very same way. So fine. And again, Lisa, and the rest of you, you find people, again, that's why we said you don't yourself and 3 or 4 other people, because you're not going to find many people that's going to want to do what you need them to. So you got to be very selective with that group of people, and you know, and just you know, embrace those that will work, and try to at least get one of your administrators on your team, even though they may not be able to be there all the time. At least have them on there, and that would you know, having them on there does have some influence, you know, with others. Don't look for a large group of people. And again, if you can't meet them face to face, do it virtually. You know, I hope that helps.
And you're not going to be able, and you're not going to be able to have everybody there every time anyway.
No.
That's just the name of the game. So go on with what you have, who you have. But I think Dr. Stedman's correct. If you can get an administrator or a lead teacher to be at your meetings and to be a part of that group, I think you will have a better luck at getting attendance.
Yeah, and that was part of the problem was today, both the lead teacher and the administrator that I invited were very involved with the PDP process. And so that they were pulled away at that. But I like your idea of the virtual meeting, and I will do that. I think I just need to establish some credibility in my school because I've been in a teacher role, and I'm, trying to step it up a little bit, and it might take time.
And again, we're looking for leadership from each of you. However, if there is an existing PLC and that's what you have to work with, as long as you take the leadership role with that, we're okay with that too. So, it may be your grade level PLC or your department PLC, but as long as you become the leader of that PLC, then that same PLC could work. It doesn't have to be, we like a brand new one, but it doesn't have to be a brand new one. And we realize we're working in difficult times. We realize that. Okay.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. Guys, I know there are a few more questions. I suggest we move along.
Yeah.
And then we'll cycle back to those.
Let's come back, but those are good questions. We'll just, if there's more to that, then we'll talk about that after we get, let's get through the next part of what we're going to be doing. I want to bring up our AAPSL helpful hints.
And let me just say while you're bringing that up, guys, the template is what you are going to write in. That is where you put your narrative, and that's what you follow. But that helpful hints is essential. It is the document that gives you the how-to for each section. So don't just work from the template. Have that helpful hints document right there with you.
And just a reminder, task one, remember, task one had only one prompt. It's important to remember that. When you get to task two is going to have two prompts, prompt one and prompt two. I'm going to talk to you about prompt one. Now, what Dr. Revis and I are going to do is we're just going to basically go over this step by step. Then what I want to do, Dr. Revis, I want to pull up an actual completed student work going back to task one and to task two, so they can see it on the template. So just look at the green section and remember that all graphics, etc., used are to be identified as figures shown according to APA. Okay. Now with task one, remember that you've done your research. You've said what a PLC is. You've got your committee together. You've met with that committee. You've established the norms, the meeting standards. You've talked about the mission and the vision, what you want to do, and now it's time to get started. This is what you're going to do. Now I want you to notice. Remember, we said that if you see something in black, that and in your template it's going to stay. But if you see something in yellow, remember that means you've got to do some work. You've got to do some narrative work. And
Dr. Stedman, are you sharing a document with us?
You know what? I'm probably just sharing it with myself. I apologize. Let me go back.
I think I stopped.
Yeah, you did, and I forgot. I was just
okay.
Thank you, because
okay.
I would have gone right on and just acted just like I. Okay, let me pull it up.
Well, I think they would have gone ahead and let you go right on.
Yeah, don't do that. Let me go back. Okay, here it is. Okay, here we are. Now, thank you. I was going right. I wondered why I couldn't see anybody, but I said maybe I'd done something wrong. Okay, just a reminder again, task one has only one prompt, and we've gone over that already, but task 2 has 2 prompts. And remember again, if it's in yellow, that means you've got to do something. Now, I want you to notice right here, we've made it easy for you. You're going to put at the top, task 2, prompt 1, you go, whatever the directions are, you're going to write them in there, you know, because it's in your template. Then guess what? Guess what your heading is going to be? Data collection strategies. Notice we've already done it for you APA style. The D in data is capitalized, but guess what is not capitalized? The C in collection and the S in strategies. We've made that easy for you. So what are you going to do here? You are going to lead that PLC team that you identified in task 1. You're going to lead that team into collecting or coming up with data collection strategies. Now remember, your ultimate goal is you've got to, as a team, you've got to come up with, you know, for student achievement, what is the most pressing need at our school? Now you already may think you know. Your principal may already say this is what it is, but you still got to go through the process, okay? So what am I going to do? You're going to work with this team and to determine the strategies that will be used. What strategies are we going to employ to collect the data that we're going to need to determine the most pressing need for improving student achievement? Now, those strategies could be, I mean, it could be anything. You know, you're going to go to where you going to go? You're going to go to your school report card. If it's M class, you're going to pull the M class data. If it's Study Island, you're going to pull Study Island reports. Whatever you think you're going to use, you're going to pull everything that you can humanly possible think of. It could be EBOS. It could be benchmark testing. I'm just putting, it could, you know, anything. But what you're doing, you're coming up with and you're brainstorming, because guess what, Chessie, what you think of, you may think, well, this is all I can think of. But whoever's in your group, they may say, well, you know, Chessie, have you thought about so and so? So no, I hadn't thought about that. So they bring to the table other things. That's what the team is there for. They bring to the table other things that could possibly be used as strategies for collecting the data. That's all you're doing now. And number 1, and you're going to write about it. You're going to write exactly what you and your team did to determine how that data was going to be collected. And you're not only going to talk about it, you're going to go out and you're going to get it, because you've got to use that data. Then you're going to go to number 2. Guess what your heading is? Criteria and process for identifying the most pressing need. You're going to set up, you're going to have a formula, criteria, you're going to have a recipe, and you're going to have a process. You're going to have a recipe, and this is what we're going to do. As a team, I'm going to lead this team with this criteria that we set up and with this process for identifying the most pressing need. Guess what? Using all of this stuff that you've collected up here. Once the team and you have determined the strategies for collecting data, you will decide what criteria and process will be used for identifying the most pressing need. The narrative work for this section will discuss the criteria and the process. All you're doing is, when you talk with your team, you're putting it in word form, what you and your team talked about and what you decided. Then, number 3, your heading is, and I want you to notice this is the key word, collaborative data analysis. It doesn't mean Dr. Revis did this all by herself. It means she worked with the team. Once steps 1 and 2 have been completed, you're going to take all that stuff up there and you're going to take that process that you talked about. You're going to put it out on the table, and it's all these puzzle pieces. And you and the team are going to, you're going to take everything and you're going to tear it apart. You're going to everything that you can do to look at, what is there. You're going to talk about it, and you're going to decide, if it's pieces of the puzzle that you can use to put the puzzle together as you are trying to identify, what I can use to help me determine what my most pressing need is. Now, you're going to, once you've done all that, you're going to make sure you cover every angle possible. And the narrative work for this section is going to discuss this process. Now, again, I'm going to go back to Chessie again because I see Chessie. Chessie may say I, because she's the leader. I did so-and-so. But then she may refer to somebody else in her team. And you can call them by name because you're going to identify them up there. That they brought this to the table or they suggested that. You want to show that you're leading, but you want to show that your team is also involved. Now, after you've done all of that, you and your team are going to, you're going to put all the pieces together. You're going to tear it apart. You're going to study it every humanly possible way that you can. And then you're going to have your heading is most pressing need. Based on what you've found, discovered in number 3, once step 3 has been completed, the team and you will determine the most pressing need. You're going to say, according to our disaggregation of data, the team and I have decided that the most pressing need is, and you're going to say that, and you're going to tell us why. So that's what task 2, prompt 1 consists of. Dr. Revis, task 2, prompt 2.
So in task 1, it's all narrative. In task 2, it's where you put your graphic representations of your data. In other words, you're telling the same story, but you're telling it now with presenting your tables and charts and graphs. So let's say, for example, that you want to show work keys data. Now, I'm not that familiar with work keys, so I should not have picked that example. But if you're looking at work keys data because you've got a group of CTE teachers, then I'm going to have graphs in prompt 2 that depict what my team has looked at. But I'm just not going to have graphs or charts or tables. I'm going to tell the reader what that's about. So you do put some narrative work in with it, but you're going to tell the story of how you came up with your most pressing need through your representation of graphs and tables and charts. And these are all going to be figures according to APA. So don't just throw out a bunch of figures with no explanation. Tell me why it's there and what conclusions your team has drawn from this information. And then at the end, of course, you have your reference section and your appendices. Now, once you do task prompts 1 and 2, then you schedule a meeting with your principal or leadership team, probably just your principal because it's hard to get everybody together. And you're going to present the findings of your PLC. You're going to go through and show them the data that your team disaggregated and how you came up with your most pressing need. Now, it's highly recommended that you do a video, or if you're doing it via Zoom, which don't forget the power of Zoom, you can do a Zoom recording, but at least you should have a picture of you presenting to your administrative team or your administrator. And then that will be included in your work and submitted as artifacts, that presentation. You need to have a PowerPoint and an agenda for that presentation as well. So task 2 is a lot. You've got 2 prompts and a lot of data disaggregation, narrative writing, showing your data graphically with explanations, and then a presentation to your principal or admin team.
Thank you, Dr. Revis. Let me pull this down. And then now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually pull. Okay, there it is. Okay. Oh, man. It signed out.
Oh, no.
It signed out. Okay. Dr. Revis, talk to him for just a minute while I go find it. Okay.
Okay. So, you know, task 2 is going to be a lot bigger than task 1 was. You can already see that. And you may be thinking, how many PLC meetings do I need to have to get through task 2? Well, you know, you're going to have at least 1. You can get away with just 1, but you're probably going to have a couple, because the first time you talk with them, and it can be a short meeting, what data sources do we want to pull from? Now, if you're looking at 3rd grade reading, his 3rd grade reading data, but don't forget, we have performance and we have growth data. And nobody's asked me this yet. Well, no, I take that back. I've had a couple of people say, well, we don't have data from 2021. Don't worry about it. Use your most recent data. Well, we didn't have data in 2020. Don't worry about it. Use your most recent data. Whatever that is, that's what you go back and use, because that's what you would have to do in the real world. And this is the real world. Go back and use the most recent data. But don't forget to look at growth, and that would be EVOS, and look at performance. And most of the time you can get that off your state school report card. Don't forget to look at it by groups of students, disaggregate it down by groups. And that way you will be able to really do a data dive in to see, you know, what groups of students may be growing well, but not performing well, or vice versa, those students who are performing well, but may not be growing well. So there's a lot of ways you can analyze data. You know, don't belabor the point. Get through that discussion pretty quickly, so then you can go quickly and look at your data and have that data analysis session with your team. Are you getting there, Dr. Stedman?
I am. I've got it. I think I've got it now. Go ahead, and a couple of people have their hands raised, if you will.
Okay.
I have a question. I teach 8th grade science, and it is an EOG tested subject, so we do have state data from that course. Do I need to, for the data analysis, can I just do the 8th grade science, or do I need to do like ELA or math?
You can decide just to do 8th grade science. Okay. But again, that needs to be something your team decides. Now, if your team, collaborative team, is just a group of science teachers, that makes sense that that's what they're going to want to look at.
Yeah, my principal assigned my PLC, so we're all the 8th grade science teachers and administrators.
Then that's exactly what you need to look at. But don't forget to look at growth, performance, and disaggregate it by groups, and you will have plenty to look at.
Okay. Okay. Let's hold your thoughts. Let's go ahead and go through this. This is an actual student work that was done back in the fall of 2020. It was completed work. She scored accomplished work. So again, this is her first page where she just puts your name there. Let's look at, let me see. Okay, there's the school profile. Notice she just began talking about her school, Dillon Middle School, located in rural Dillon County. She talked about the enrollment. Again, this gives you an idea. People are worried about how long something should be. This gives you an idea of what the school profile looked like. Notice in black, the task 1 description, the directions are there. Your instructions are there. Prompt 1, look at there. PLC research. This is the PLC, professional learning communities are. And then it goes on to say, notice before has been cited. See, now that covers the research, but she thoroughly covered what needed to be covered. Now look at the PLC selection. She taught Dillon Middle School has a varied staff with different experiences and knowledges. I wanted staff to serve on my PLC who would provide insight into our school, blah, blah, blah. She had some narrative work. Then she talked about them. I chose our first year assistant principal, Felicia McCollum. She has taught at the high school level for 12 years and completed an administrative degree. She will provide a fresh viewpoint to our middle school. In addition, she is from Dillon, so she is familiar with, and she goes on and talk about my second PLC member and why. But she's distinguished each one based on their individual attributes. This one, she has been in education for over 25 years. She also has her school administration degree. Then she held her PLC meeting. I opened the professional learning community meeting by welcoming everyone and thanking them for their participation. The meeting was held in our data room because it provided the space needed for the group. And then she goes on and she talks about, I discussed the roles in a PLC and asked for volunteers for specific jobs. Ms. Hyatt agreed to be our record keeper. Ms. Crawford decided she would be our timekeeper. The group examined measures of academic progress, MAP, South Carolina Ready, and Lexile scores for 6th graders. They actually began looking at some things, but they didn't have to. And then, now she has a running, now after that, the PLC meeting, and I'll come to it in a minute, you would have, for your first task, you would have your reference section, and then you would have your appendices. And I'll show you what's in that in just a moment. She just happened to, I ran the one that had both documents in it, and she had a running reference section and a running appendices. So that's why you won't see it with this document. This is task 2. Notice this is what I talked about, data collection strategies. This one talked about the pandemic because this was right slap dab in the middle of it. And you still may have some of those same issues, but you know, however you do it, she said, due to the pandemic, our school did not have any end of year test scores. I collected measures of academic progress MAP scores from fall of 2019. She goes on and talks about what she was able to gather, what the team was able to gather. You notice it's not long and drawn out. She covered it and she moved on to the next part. Criteria and process for identifying the most pressing need. Prior to the PLC meeting, I asked my principal what issues he thought were most important for our school. Now that's the leader. The leader was doing work before they came back to the team. He said he believed that our 6th grade hybrid students' reading scores would be the most pressing need. That's what he thought. And then she came back and she actually shared this with the team, and then they began to dig further into establishing criteria and processes for identifying. But notice she kept saying, I did this because I'm the leader. And you should show that. Then collaborative data analysis. As the leader of the PLC, I disaggregated the data for the PLC to examine it carefully. But notice what she said. The PLC examined the South Carolina State Report Card data for our school. It shows our English language art scores compared within our district and our state. And she goes on and talks about that. She goes on and talks further about that. Now, based on all that disaggregation, she basically covered everything she needed to cover, dotted every I, crossed every T, and then this, what she said at the end. After meeting with my PLC and my principal, we decided that the reading scores of the hybrid 6th grade students are the most pressing need. And then she goes on and tells why. She supports that decision. Then this is what Dr. Revis talked about. she graphically presented everything that she had talked about. All that data she had up there, guess what? There's figures, there's stuff already out there made up. If you go into the system, you'll find it. Don't spend a lot of time trying to invent something that's already there. But she graphically talked about the MAP Lexile scores with this pie graph. Look at the other figures. It further talks about the things she's talked about that because that's a big deal in her assessment. Then look what she did. This is Smith's home rule reading levels based on South Carolina Ready. She looked at the 6th grade scores. And see, and with your EOG testing, you've got access to the same kind of this data interpretation. Your district has all kind of stuff that you can use. But you notice she has graphically told her story based on everything that she's talked about up there in prompt A. She's graphically told her story and she's identified them as figures. And remember that with that, there's enough information that you write under the figure so that when we look at it or the reader looks at it, they know what they're looking at. It gives an explanation of what it is. And then you notice she's got a lot of information there. And then she goes on to task 3. But then you remember that you have to have your appendices and you have to have your reference section, APA style. Remember in your appendices that for task 1, at a minimum, you're going to have your email to your principal and the affirmative response back. You're going to have an agenda of your meeting. And at least I would have them to take a picture of me presenting because that's proof. That's at a minimum. For this one, for task 2, you're still going to be meeting with your team. So you're going to have another agenda. You're going to have to do a presentation to your principal. So you're going to have, the slides of your PowerPoint presentation, I would make copies of those and I would put those in my appendices. That's proof. And I would also have a picture of me presenting to my principal or to the leadership team. And that gets you started. That gets you started with everything that you need to do for task 1 and task 2 of the AAPSL. Dr. Revis, while I'm pulling something up again, if you would entertain any questions of this, because I need to go ahead and show them something in Blackboard so that they'll know what they've got to do with some of this stuff.
Okay. Katie, you have your hand up. What kind of question do you have?
Okay, this might be a loaded question, but my school is low performing. It is actually a D school and probably going to be an F after this year. I have a feeling. But when I'm looking at data, and I've done this over the summer for our MTSS team and analyzed a lot of that data, there are so many areas that need work and we don't have a strong core. How do I kind of help them decide which is the biggest area that we need to focus on?
Well, that's one of the things that you can have the discussion in your team about. With everything that we're looking here, with all our subgroups and, our content areas, it's kind of dismal. What do you think if we could focus on one thing that would make the most impact on other things? What would it be? Now, you're talking to an old curriculum and instruction person, and I'm going to always say, I have a master's degree in math, but I'm always going to say reading in elementary school. So, that's, but those are the conversations that you want to evolve out of your PLC.
So if we did say reading, then I could break it down even more into subgroups based on, okay, that makes sense. Okay.
You can, or you can look at reading and look at those foundational reading skills and get into some M class data. I mean, gosh, you could go forever on it, Katie. So, don't get too far in the weeds.
That's
I'll
what I'm
just
afraid
say,
I'm gonna have. It's gonna happen. But
because you
okay.
don't have time to get that. But yeah, you can go as far as you want to go with it. But
Okay.
again, I think you get more buy-in if you let that team talk through which data are we going to focus on?
Okay, that makes sense.
What's our most pressing need?
Okay, thank you.
Kayla?
Hi, I'm just wondering, so is the video part or the picture and presenting the data, is that a part of, are we doing both tasks? Are we doing both parts of task 2?
You will be, yes, you will be.
Does the video a part of that? That part that you had in green, is that after task 2?
Exactly. It's after you finish task 2. Now, I will tell you, somebody put up on the chat board, we got to do all this in 1 week. Yeah, that's going to be a hard week. Next week's going to be tough. So you get down to next week and you haven't had time to get in front of your administrator, you need to talk to us, okay? Remember the power of Zoom. People will hop on Zoom meetings with you a lot quicker than they're going to sit down and come to a face-to-face meeting. So don't forget that.
Okay, and then
Dr.
just
Revis, one
last-
of the things that the reason you will find from this point on. Now, just remember, task 1 only is due for our review and peer review this Sunday evening. However, you should already, if you're not already on top of task 1, many of you should be on top of task 1. The week is almost over with. Tomorrow be midweek. So you can't wait, because you need to get that over with, because you've already got to begin planning what next week is going to look like. Because week 2, and I told you, you've got to get through about these first 3 weeks. Week 2, at the end of next week, you will submit task 1 for a final grade, but you will submit task 2 for peer and instructor review at the same time. Okay? So you're going to find that after this week, you only have one thing to submit this or one task to submit this Sunday. But after this Sunday, there will always be a task that will be submitted for a final grade, and there will always be a task that you will submit for peer and instructor review on the same night. I mean, you can submit it anytime during the week, but they will be due by that Sunday night. So that's why you've got to get yourself paced. Once you get into a routine, it'll work itself out, but you got to get there.
Are we
Dr. Simmons?
supposed to peer review somebody else's? Are we assigned a person?
Kettle, yeah, Kayla, hold that question. We're getting ready to get into that. Dr. Simmons, do you think we could go and look at your screen and show them where they upload their task 1 for peer and instructor review?
I felt like I felt like that we needed to. Okay, I'm in Blackboard. This is the same thing you see when you go at the Blackboard. Okay, now when you complete your task 1 of the AAPSL, whenever you submit it this week. Now I'll look here, AAPSL task for review. There's 2 places. This is one place you can go to. You go to AAPSL task for review. You click on it. And here's where it is. This is where you did your contact information. AAPSL task 1 for peer and instructor review. You create a thread there. You create a thread. Let me just click on it. You create the thread and you attach your task 1 for peer and instructor review there, and you submit it. You can do the very same thing in, told you there's 2 places. Discussion board is the very same thing. That's not 2 different things. If you hit discussion board, it's going to do the very same thing, but that's where you submit it. Now, Dr. Revis, go ahead and talk about, because now Dr. Hamilton's going to do a big job on the peer and instructor review, on the peer review Thursday night. Talk to them about now, once it goes there, what their responsibility is going to be in their Zoom teams.
Yeah, Kayla, you know, you're forward thinking here, so I appreciate that. What you're going to do, remember, everybody's work is submitted on Sunday evening at 9. So I'm not going to go into it a whole lot because Dr. Hamilton's going to do it thoroughly on Thursday, but you will go pick up and review 2 of your team members' work. And she's going to tell you what you do, how to do it, and all that kind of stuff. But yes, you will do that.
And again, on Thursday evening, everything that you need to know about peer reviews will be thoroughly discussed on Thursday evening. It will be laid out, but you will be required to review 2 of your peers' task 2 works. Dr. Revis, explain to them why they need to do a peer review, what it's going to do for them. It's going to do more than one thing.
Well, it does many things. I think you always learn the material better when you're reviewing other people's work, of course, because you have to know it. You have to know what the look-fors are. And I think it gives you practice in giving adults feedback. Many of you are in leadership roles already, curriculum roles, lead teacher roles, assistant principal roles, and you probably are very comfortable doing that. But unless you're in one of those roles, you've probably never given feedback to another adult. And we're going to be kind, but we're going to give candid feedback. And, you know, Dr. Hamilton will talk about that a little bit, and then the last thing is you're getting to see everybody else's work. And when you're looking through it, you're going to say, oh, I forgot that. You know, boy, she did a super job here in this section. I need to go back and beef mine up. Those kinds of things. So it serves an array of purposes.
Right.
Okay.
And again, let's just say, for instance, let's say that Sarah and Tanya are in the same group, and Sarah is looking at Tanya's work. And Sarah she may really be, her forte is, you know, I'm just really good at APA, and I'm really good at grammar, especially comma usage or whatever. But Tanya may say, you know, that's just not my strength. I do run-on sentences. I'm not good at commas. Well, Sarah's going to identify some of those things for Tanya, so that when Tanya submits her final work for a final grade, she will have an opportunity, based on what Sarah has told her, to make corrections in addition to what either Dr. Revis or I have told you as well. The good thing about it is, not only is Sarah going to look at Tanya's work, but guess what? Another person's going to look at Tanya's work. So when Tanya looks at her work, she's going to have 2 peers that have peer reviewed her work and given her suggestions. Now, guess what, Tanya? You may say, I don't see that. You don't have to take their advice. It's just a peer review. You may say that I don't see that. However, if it comes from Dr. Revis and comes from me, you don't have that option. You do have that option with your peers, but you don't have that option with Dr. Revis and me. Okay? Is that fair enough? But you're going to find that you're going to be, once you get into the sharing, you're going to find how beneficial that is, because they're going to see sometimes little things that you don't see, but they'll catch it, and they'll make it easier for you in this process. Again, this is going to be thoroughly discussed on Thursday, but we felt like that we needed to go ahead and give you some pre-knowledge or some pre-information on what to expect on Thursday. I know
And let me
we've given you a lot.
Yeah, let me just say one thing. You know, after this next week, you're going to see that you will start seeing a routine to the work. You will start seeing, okay, this is due on Sunday night, and then I start needing to work on this. You will start seeing that. And we'll talk you through some of it and give you some hints about it's about time management for this course, guys. It's about time management.
Dr. Revis, check that chat. I've just thought of something else before everybody leaves. I want to bring one more thing up in the to show. I thought about this after I got where.
Okay, we've got one question. Is task 1 and 2 on the template together? Yes, they will all be on the same template, but as we move through building that whole AAPSL document, you are just going to turn in each task one at a time for us. So you'll only turn in task 1 Sunday evening, and then task 2 is by itself. And then we'll give you time to put it all together in the end.
And then again, remember, if you get your work done and you feel good about it, don't wait until Sunday afternoon. You submit it you can submit it from this point on. I would say after Thursday, after you have your our session on Thursday, I would say after that, feel comfortable to submit to Dr. Revis and me anything that you need to go ahead and submit, and to your peers as well if you've got task 1 completed. Let's get Thursday over with, just in case there's some things that you would hear that you would need to make corrections on. I'm going to go to week 2, and I'm going to show you.
Yes, while you're doing that, Brian, yes, that's probably what I would do. I would just delete everything, have you a master template and delete everything but what you're turning in.
Okay, this is what I want you to see for week 2. These are your assignments. AAPSL task 1 draft due in Blackboard's discussion board. That is what's due next week. This week by 9 o'clock. Only AAPSL task 1. Now, you're going to hear about the peer reviews on Thursday. After you can't peer review until the work has been submitted. You'll look at it effective Sunday night, because that's when all of them will have to be in there. And from Sunday night, and I would say, Dr. Revis, wouldn't you say that no later than that Tuesday or Wednesday, they should have their peer reviews done, because you've got to submit your final work at the end of the week. And guess what? If you wait until Saturday to do peer reviews, is it going to do anybody any good?
I agree. That's one of the first things I would say you start doing on Sunday night. Start looking and doing your peer reviews.
The only thing that you have to turn into us Sunday night is task 1 of the AAPSL for peer and instructor review. And only Dr. Revis and I, you're going to start looking at it then, and then you will already know, because of what we tell you on Thursday night, you'll know how to go about doing the peer reviews, and you'll be able to start them. You'll be able to start them then. Your Zoom teams, whoever your Zoom teams are, you need to decide as a Zoom team, if there's 5 of you in the team, who's going to do what. However, if somebody does not submit their work in a timely manner, don't be held hostage. As long as you are reviewing somebody's work in your team, it doesn't matter. Okay, you can't wait if somebody fails to turn their work in a timely manner, that shouldn't hold you hostage from doing the work that you need to do. Okay, that fair
Brother
enough?
Stillman, we have a couple hands still raised.
Okay.
Damon, I see your hand raised. If you still have a question?
Yeah, I had a question. I had a question last class, and it carried over to this one.
Okay.
I think y'all skipped me last time. I was the guy that said I was at the alternative school, and I've been
Okay.
reading this information, and my school doesn't operate or function like you all school. And my example, and I'm feeling past the point of panic because I tried to explain to the situation that our teachers are fleeting and we're not allowed to replace them. Let me see, my PLC group, let me see, we lose a person tomorrow. We're down to 4 people in the building. Do I have enough?
Yes, that's enough, Damien.
Okay, and not every,
you work with
there-
what you got.
okay, and there are only 3 solid teachers. If I can pull in a social worker, a counselor, just like I said, because when I look at this stuff, I don't have what the example has, and I'm past the point of panic now.
Well, quit panicking. You use what you have to work with, and again,
Well, our data doesn't look like everybody else's data, so I'm trying to
That's
figure out how
okay.
it fits.
call me tomorrow, Damien. Call me tomorrow, but call me after lunch tomorrow, okay?
Okay, and our hours are different than everybody else when I try to connect too, because I know we work till 6 p.m.
Mhm.
Okay, I'll be right on it.
Just call me tomorrow, anytime after lunch. I've got meetings in the morning time, but I'll talk you through this, okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you're gonna be fine.
Okay, Lauren, do you still have a question?
I do have a question. My principal, when I met with her about creating the PLC, she told me that she wants me to focus on our 4th grade transitional student, their reading data, but she wanted to use data from this year. Specifically, I think we were going to utilize M-Class, but we are not going to have M-Class data by the end of next week.
No.
So I know you guys said look at years past. I think she was really hoping to use current data, so it would really be beneficial for the current group of students.
But you're not going to have that opportunity,
Please.
then, Lauren. You have to use what you have, but then what can happen when the data comes in, you can go back as a team and it doesn't even have to be a part of the work that you're doing for us per se, but you can go back and you can include that and update things, once the new data comes in. But that gives you a starting point. And I think I communicated with you, guess what? You're going to probably find that it's not going to be much different than what the new is going to be, simply because of everything that we've been going through.
Does that help you, Lauren?
It does. I will do what I need to do. I'm not sure how on board. I think it will be a challenge, but I'll do what I'm supposed to.
Okay, all right. Angela, do you still have a question?
I do. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I met with my principal. Well, my principal's actually out, so my assistant principal has been deemed, I about the PLC, and I've actually got the permission. But what I forgot to do was send the email. So what should I do? Should I send the email tomorrow, like per our conversation, or how do I? Because okay.
Yeah, that'd be great. Perfect.
Just go back and fix it. That's all you got to do.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you.
Latasha, do you still have a question?
Yes, ma'am, I do. Okay,
Okay.
my situation was kind of sort of similar to Angela's, but I was able to fix it. I figured it out and I was able to fix it. So I got that part taken care of. But far as submitting my contact information, I just answered those questions with my peers. So I didn't know we supposed to put it in the actual submit it in the discussion board or something like that. I didn't know we supposed to did that. So
Go back and fix it, Latasha. It doesn't matter. Just go back and fix it, okay?
okay. And also one more thing, I'm the OCS lead teacher. So it's a total of 4 of us, 2 lead teachers and 2 TAs. So far as creating my group, is it okay? I hope so, because we already created it. But is it okay if I have my assistant principal and the other OCS lead teacher and the curriculum facilitator and myself?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
that's perfect. Yes.
Thank you.
And let's see, did we get everybody whose hands is, I think,
Anybody else?
Sean?
Sean? Okay.
I'm looking for the little virtual hands. Okay.
I'm
go ahead.
sorry. No. My principal said that she wanted me to do something on social emotional learning. Would that be, would you allow that? Or because she said it's like we have lessons each week. There's a core project to it. She said something about TAME as well. So I told her that I would have to do something on the math or the reading or ELA or something like that. So is that what I need to do?
It cannot, while that is so important, Sean, it has to be something that can be measured with some type of test.
Sean, that would be a great project to do, clinical hours. But just not for this task, okay?
Okay.
There'll be some opportunities.
All right, sounds good.
For that. Thanks, Sean. Okay.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Okay.
Okay, Lauren, Avery, you still have your virtual hand up, or you still have a question?
I'm sorry. I apparently with Zoom. But since you said that, actually, as I was listening to you talk. So with the data, I think I'm gonna have to totally switch what she wants me to do. I'm just confused now. I'm just looking at like maybe the year 18, 19, report card data for, let's say, 3rd grade EOGs. I'm just throwing this out there. And we're deciding like next steps based on like if we're at 30% reading proficiency. I just don't feel like that really drills down to anything. I think that's what my hang up is, like, how am I can see what that data is and we're at 30% proficiency overall, and I can break it up by demographic. But when I'm thinking about next steps, like those kids are gone. But also, I guess I'm thinking about, it really doesn't tell me specifics. Like, I'm thinking about like a teacher, like 3 RL1.
Well, you can drill down. You can drill down by, like you say, by some of your content strands, or you can drill down by groups of students. But that's part of what you'll decide in your PLC. Is it going to be the most recent data? We know it's not. We've not had data. And those students have gone on. But unless your teaching has changed drastically in your school, and you could have that kind of turnover, that the instructional practices have changed drastically. And we know we've been face-to-face, virtual, all that. But I still think it's relevant to look at data, your most recent data.
And I would say that in your narrative work, all of you have lived with it. So, there's going to be language about COVID and everything that you have had to experience, with the virtual experience, the in and out experience, all of that, I would say at this point still needs to be a part of your story as you're telling the story about your school, and, and including in your data, because that's what you've lived for the last year and a half.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody else? These are all
I
great.
think Christine has her hand up.
I did have a question. I put in the chat as well. Just asking for that reference page. Are we going to be putting our references after each task, or do you want it to be a running reference whereby task 2, we end up having all the references from task 1 and 2?
Dr. Revis, I've seen both of them. Some people decide that they want to put it with each task. after the first task, if you have a running reference, we accept that. You know, whatever works best for you, Racine.
Racine, you're already thinking ahead, girl.
Thank you too for the answer.
All right, we have Rachel.
Okay, I have the school that I was at last year consolidated into my current school. So the only data really that's useful that we have would be what we just did. Like, and we also our school district switched from using STAR as progress universal screening to iReady. So would I just use what they've done in iReady so far this year?
I would go back. Do you have access to the STAR data?
No.
Can you get access to it?
I can try.
I would pull, because that's basically is still a foundation for you, even though you might not use it. It will give some implications as to where the weaknesses are.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, and Heather, I see your hand up.
So my principal wanted me to do first grade. The problem is I'm special ed. When I say special ed, I don't mean push in, pull out. I mean, I'm in Fort Mill, so it's level 1, which would be the lowest as far as academic. So when it comes to scores of anything, I mean, I have first graders, and that's kind of why they wanted me to go that route. But I don't know how that's going to work for me, because my first graders they follow the extended content. So it's not.
So I
I'm
think
not really sure how. I'm trying to make it relevant.
Yeah, it may. I think what you need to think about is it's bigger than just what's relevant for you. If you're looking at first grade data, that will be first grade data for all students in your school, not just your individual students, or unless I'm misreading what you're saying.
No, and I guess my thing is I've always done special ed, so it's like this is a new frontier for me.
And,
yeah, well,
and it's going to be, Heather. It really is.
Yeah, and as a 21st century leader, you got to roll your sleeves up and learn that data.
Oh, I know,
and
right?
learn what it means.
I'm just trying to figure out, because what I wanted to do, I was trying to do something where I could make it relevant for them as well, and that I'm trying to combine the two. And I don't know that that's going to work.
And my suggestion to you is don't belabor that. Pick something and get on with it, okay? Because we want this to be as relevant to your work as possible. But don't get too broad with it. You've got to select something and dive into it.
Right, and then if you really need to reach out to either Dr. Revis or me, to play off of us, call us and just say, am I in the right direction? That's okay, Heather.
Yes.
Yeah, and I mean, there are ways I can, because I'm also in tandem with this. I'm trying to finish up my doctorate dissertation.
Right.
So I'm hoping, and I may be able to cross the two.
You got a lot on your plate, girl.
Yeah. Okay, and we got one more. Take one more question, Solomon.
Yes, I just had a question. I think you already addressed this, but writing the narrative, we said that the narrative is in first person, correct? And then when we're writing about the school profile, are we writing that as if we are a part of the school, or as if we're just talking about the school?
I see it written as talking about the school.
I do too, Dr. Revis.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
You're just telling the story of the school, Solomon.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Dr. Revis, you see anybody else? I know it's.
I just have a general question. Where can I find that form that you guys had posted? The look at The one that you started off with, Dr. Stedman?
Okay, it's under, Dr. Revis, did you get yours posted?
I thought I did. The
Okay.
name of it is what? I
Uh,
can't
find it.
Okay, I've got it right here. How to begin task 1 of the AAPSL. Kayla, if you,
Kayla,
it's actually under last week, and then Dr. Revis, if you haven't, Dr. Revis will put it under week 2
Yeah.
as well. She has that, but she'll go ahead and put it under there so you'll be able to run a copy of that off, Kayla, all of you.
Yeah, Kayla, I thought I did. If I didn't, I will get that posted, okay?
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Well, good night. This has been great. This has been great. Thank you for hanging in there with us, and we'll see you on Thursday, and reach out to us if you need us, okay?
Good evening, guys.
Thank you.